A great pleasure to have Robert Hall joining us from Ireland. And Robert, together with Ted Walsh, was part of a duo that really was synonymous with Irish racing broadcasting for so many years. Ted Walsh has just left RTE Racing and Robert left RTE about 3 years or so ago. So Robert, we will come to your time on the television in Ireland, but let's start first, not with your broadcasting career, with racing and Irish racing. It's a long calendar, it's an extensive calendar, but it's also a very finely tuned calendar and one that seems to work very well. Talk us through some of your highlights of the Irish racing year.
It's a long calendar. It's a varied calendar. I think we're sort of lucky in this country that we mix flat and jumping so much. I mean, Galway, the Galway Festival is a perfect example of a huge success, where you get a flat race, a steeplechase, a hurdle, a flat race, whatever. It seems to work. The festivals, I think, are enormous. Punchestown, we've just had the curtain closer to the national hunt season. It's really massive. Obviously, the success of our horses is helping hugely. The Dublin Racing Festival, that was we got that up and running, only a few years ago, and it's growing and growing and doing terribly well. Champions Weekend is wonderful. I think we probably got in ahead of the UK on that one. We split it between Leopardstown and the Curragh. It seems to work really well. The Listowel Harvest Festival in September, absolutely marvellous. And we got terrific money, prize money. The government this year are giving us 73 million. Huge amount of money, really, isn't it? So it all helps. So there are lots of highlights through the year.
And alongside those big festivals, to which we of course all do trips, Dublin, Punchestown and Galway, there are smaller venues in Ireland, smaller festivals. What are some of the off the beaten track, those lower key events that we should know about that perhaps UK visitors have never attended?
When you look at, I think Gorham Park is the most lovely, picturesque place. We have the Thyestes meeting there all through the year. There's wonderful racing. Bellewstown, a summer evening there is absolute magic. Tramore, you get really close to the horses, close to everything. That's a lot of fun too. I always say to people, go west, because in the west you get the most wonderful atmosphere, and whether it's Ballinrobe or Roscommon or Sligo or wherever like that, you're going to have a lot of fun. Of course, Killarney is hugely picturesque. They have some lovely festival meetings, I think 5 days in July. So there's lots to get involved with.
There's always been talk about the Irish being closer to horses than perhaps the Brits and other nationalities. Do you think that's the case? We've talked about the larger festivals and the smaller festivals in Ireland and other race courses, and at the grassroots level, the point-to-pointing level and so on. It does seem that there is a closer relationship between man, woman and horse in Ireland. Is that true to say?
Yeah, perhaps more so than you in the UK. I don't know why it should be, but I think it probably is. And I think maybe you go, historically, the farming community, we probably didn't mechanize when you did. Our farms are very small. 500-acre farm in this country is absolutely enormous, whereas it's on the small side in the UK. And I think consequently the horse got used in farming probably more so. That brings on family participation. Children are brought up with their ponies. It brings in hunting. It brings in gymkhanas, pony clubs, all that sort of thing. And of course that gets into the gene pool. And we don't have industry probably. Well, we don't have industry like you do, raw materials, and it's farming is a big deal, and farming and horses go together here, very much so.
Let's come to your broadcasting career, because it was long, it was extensive, and it looked very enjoyable. Was the broadcasting career first? Was it racing and broadcasting second?
No, funny enough, it was almost broadcasting first. Okay. I mean, as a very small boy, I evidently got quite infatuated with commentary, and Peter O'Sullivan we used to turn on to every Saturday or big days or whatever, and I used to deliver my conversation in commentary, and I'd be looking for a Weetabix and milk followed by toast and honey, or that sort of stuff. I think I was probably a bit of a menace as a very small boy, and So I liked commentary, and I wrote to all the Hunt secretaries from school asking could I commentate on their point of points, and I got a thumbs up from County Clare. So I went down to Dromoland Castle and Scariff and did point of points down there. That was a wonderful time because you had the likes of Pat Hogan and the Costellos and those sort of people, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, I remember commentating. I'd always stand on a platform beside the parish priest, and he used to know. He'd know the result before I did because everybody had been to mass in the morning. He knew when horses were going to pull up, who'd only do a circuit, and that sort of stuff. So that was all fun. And then I got a call up from radio in RTE, and I became Desi Scahill, sort of number two. And I must say, I did find it very hard, a lot harder than I thought I would, because it was before the days of monitors. And, you know, royal blue, once it's been in the washing machine 10 or 12 times, it becomes pale blue, and pale blue a mile down the track on a wet day couldn't be anything. So from radio, I got into television and then began presenting it. Yeah, that was how it happened.
Do you miss it?
Do I miss it? No, I don't, funny enough. I tell you what, I miss the producing. I don't miss the presenting as much as I do the producing. Back in the sort of around 2000 or so, RTE or the government had a directive that 20% of, I think, airtime or budget airtime had to be independently produced. And this was an opportunity. So it was what I really wanted. And I joined forces with John Fairley. John, who you would know, had made such a success out of Channel 4 Racing, and he'd been the CEO of Yorkshire Television, and he'd put Racing UK on the air and all that sort of stuff. So we joined forces, and I think we made some really good programs, and that was a lot of fun. We were, we were making programs that were feature driven and for the generations. It wasn't all betting orientated and that sort of stuff. So that was a lot of fun doing those sort of programs, producing them. And then RTE obviously took it back in house because racing became terribly cheap to produce once the bookmakers wanted their service going into their betting shops, and all the broadcaster had to do was turn up with a scanner and a few more cameras, and it became an RTE production. So that's why they took it back in house. But production more than presenting, I would miss.
And finally, to come back, I don't want to make it only a comparison between UK and Irish racing, but what does Irish racing get right, in your opinion, that perhaps the UK could learn from? Just one thing that we could learn from Irish racing.
Oh, one thing. Well, I suppose make an impression on Westminster. As I say, we've got 73 million this year from the Irish government, and I think we're the template to follow, because you can see how it's paid off. I mean, it's paid off for the Irish government absolutely in spades. So if you can do that, and I think it's really, really required in England. There are all sorts of little things, I mean, you keep it fun. And Ladies' Day are very, very big. You can do a lot with fashion. You can multiply your gate by 4 probably. I think we've seen that. Encourage local involvement, get children involved, schools, university days, all that sort of stuff. I think you're pretty good at all that, but I think really it comes down to impressing on the government how important to your GDP racing can be.
Robert Hall, a great pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Xander, always a pleasure.